I'm Willem Jiang. I'm from China. I'm a finance OSPO's evangelist, and this is Daniel.
Yeah, I'm come from Spain. I'm CEO of a small company in Spain, working remotely. Everyone, a part of a couple of open source foundations as well.
Yeah. Today we will share a topic about understanding cultural difference when approaching open source.
So the thing here is that you may think that what are these two old men kind of talk to us, right? Basically, this is more like even you can consider as a coffee conversation. So we would like to know about your opinions and thoughts after this. You are right in everything except we are not old.
No, we are not old enough.
Or old enough, like these two guys. But it's been more or less this kind of conversations during the last year together. So please stay with us.
Yeah, and our host will pass the speak to. Okay. So the problems we want to solve is like if there are some newcomers to community, they may face some challenge because they come from different region, just like me from China and Daniel from Europe, and yeah, we will share some observations and to see, try to build some, start some open conversations on the culture, to build up cultural sensitivities in open source collaboration.
Yeah, if you think a bit about so if you have realized we are wearing the same T-shirt. So the T-shirt basically is, we bought this in Hanoi in the old quarter. Basically there is a person here with a question mark, and then all of this is traffic in Hanoi. So we both coming from a different place of the world, we both thought, okay, how should we proceed when we are trying to cross in the street, right? So we both thought, well, probably we should follow a local, and then we may cross the street. This worked. The main issue here with open source is that we learn in Hanoi doing by following people, by checking what others are doing, being kind of part of the society. In open source is way more difficult because you don't have people that are close to you. Every work is basically done in remote. And then all these cultural differences, basically, how should I cross this street, is totally different depending on the country. So that's the point here. How can we understand each other better? How can we be more open-minded? How can we build kind of a radar in our minds that is helping us to be better, when approaching an open source community? And big disclaimer, we are not sociologists, we are not anthropologists. Our background is in computer science.
Yeah, some observations we have, some story we gone through. There's an interesting topic, and I think we can talk for a very long time. As you see, my English name is Willem Jiang, but my Chinese name switched the positions. We put the family name first to show respect of to show the respect of our family. So my Chinese name is Jiang Ning. And Daniel has a similar story.
Yeah. So in my case, Daniel is my name, and then I have two surnames. In Spain, we have the first surname is my father's surname. The second surname is my mother's surname. So you will see that basically Spanish-speaking countries and some Latin countries, they will use two surnames. So this is the main reason. Now, indeed, there's a law in Spain. Basically, you can choose. So, for instance, for my son, we decided that the first surname will be the mother's surname, which is the one giving birth, after all. And then the second surname will be mine. So my son is, in this case, Martin Palma Izquierdo. Izquierdo is my first surname, as you can see here. From a formal perspective, it's not that formal in Spain, perhaps. So then we typically call each other by our name. But if you are at university, you are at different places, maybe they are calling you by your first surname or second surname. And you will see your name, perhaps in this more formal way, which is first surname, Izquierdo, then Cortázar, comma, and then the name. So these are some examples of, if I'm going to talk to a Chinese person, should I refer as Jiang Ning? Yeah. Should I refer as Willem?
Yeah.
How should I go?
Yeah, I think both way is okay, but we need to know there's some difference. That is the cultural sensitivity we want to promote.
Perfect. So we'll discuss a bit about our lives, as you can see today. So it's great that you're around, so we can have a conversation. Then we are sharing with you what we can call some tools to learn about all of these cultural differences, and then we'll discuss about specifically the case of open source that is more than just code, as you've seen in this FOSSASIA event. And then at the very end of the conversation is basically how to apply some of these lessons learned into observations in the open source space.
Oh, there's our story. As you may already know, Daniel from Spain and from China. How can we meet? I think we meet through the internet. I think during the pandemic, but finally we meet each other last year, and now we spend 3 or 4 or more than 4 days together, and even work out these slides. During our meet, it's like we are trying to know each other, and I think we are sure the common cultures through the food. Yeah, there's a lot of common language we can do, and with the help of the open source, we actually I meet Daniel in Chaos project, and he introduced me to the inner source commons. Yeah, and recently I just get great news. I'm an official inner source commons member.
Hey, congratulations! So we first met in Chaos during the pandemic. Basically, we had this discussion at the inner source commons level that we had some Chinese folks coming to the inner source commons, but they kind of left. They stopped contributing. So my question to Willem was, Willem, may I ask you a question? He said, yes, of course. And I said, well, I'm seeing this. Why do you think this is happening? And then this is how all these conversation about perhaps cultural differences, how we are approaching more individualistic way of working, more a collective way of working, how to bridge this cultural thing is part of all of this. And basically we are helping somehow to be onboarded in different communities, more Western, more Chinese, in our different places. So this is great. This is open source.
Yeah, we even have a book club. We will introduce this later. Some book about.
Yeah, and starting with the culture map, this is a great book to learn how you can do business all across basically the world. So the point here is how can you understand if you are being too direct or too indirect to someone? So there is one of the questions and the chapters I love in the book is how late is late? An example here for Spaniards. In Spain, you might be late up to probably 15 minutes with friends, and that's all right. Okay. From a business perspective, probably a few minutes is okay. But then we realize, because we are doing business mainly with the US, that when you are talking with US people, if you are 1 or 2 minutes late, suddenly you receive an email like, "Are you okay? Are we having the meeting?" And this is definitely a cultural difference. So we needed to learn at the very beginning that we have to proceed in this way. Okay, so we need to become really punctual to the meetings with US people, and this is basically something that depends a lot on the way you think about what being late means for all of us here. So this book is kind of summarizing part of this way of thinking across different cultures.
Oh, okay. I will show my book recommendation. It is from Saul. As you can see, it's tell the foundation of the Chinese society. This book was writing about 18 years ago, and it was written by a very famous psychologist, Fei. He wrote it by doing some comparisons between the Western society and more traditional Chinese society. We will get touch of some of the points later.
Last but not least, we wanted to share this research paper I was part of a few years ago on the barriers for contributing at the ASF Foundation, Apache Software Foundation specifically. So quickly said that we found like 88 barriers all across different areas. So if you see about the x-axis here, you can see that there are 3 main areas: process, technical, and social. Okay, and then for these 3 main areas of basically barriers for contribution, we found that there might be certain levels where people can help with that specific problem, which would be the individual. Then there is the level of the project. So basically, at the level of the PMC or the project level, you can think of how they can help from a process perspective, and then how at the foundation level, at the ASF level, they could change certain things, as for instance, onboarding materials with new videos and so on. So part of the analysis, we surveyed like 700 plus people at the ASF. We interviewed like 20 something. So this paper condensed all of these results. Why is this important? Because from these 88 challenges, we discovered, and this is kind of usual in any case in open source, nothing new here, is that language, gender, and economical status are typical barriers to contributing. But here today, we want to build on top of this and say, okay, and then we have what we can call the cultural differences.
In the open source world, is the transparency, build the collaborations, and the freedom to use the distribution of the software, and the end purpose is the spirit of the open source. But there's some challenge, just like time zones can slow down the feedback loop, and the language barriers, we have to admit that. And even there's different cultural expectations. So these are some obstacles we need to overcome.
Indeed, now we are going into a certain discussion here. So if you have any highlight you would like to raise, please raise your hand so we can have a couple of interactions really quick. The first of them we want to share is basically, and this is based on these tools that we just shared, understanding each other. So there are 2 contexts, right? You can see on the left the lower context. You can see on the right the higher context. According to the culture map, basically societies as the US society, because they were based on immigrants, at some point they all spoke different languages. So what's the problem here? That they need to understand each other. So what do? We need to be really, really clear with the vocabulary, the sentences, and the kind of things that we are trying to express with the person that is in front of us. So a lot in the communication is based basically on using the right words and the right vocabulary. So not leaving, on the air any kind of possibility, right? Being really, really clear when having the conversation.
Yeah, I think in East Asia, that's a different story. We prefer to have a simple word, but sometimes it has a lot of meaning, even with different tones. And as you can see, there's also some body language. And normally we prefer to have a face-to-face talk, so we can sense different things with this high context conversation. And there's also some history relationships will affect how we communicate. So by knowing this, I think that is quite important. What we need to behave in the open source world.
Yes, in this case, you can see that our perception here is that basically open source software is more to the left in this case. You need to be really clear. You really need to use the right vocabulary when communicating with others, specifically because you are not talking to someone. So then all this body knowledge or nonverbal, way of communicating doesn't exist. So this is open source.
Yeah.
Then we have communication on how to resolve conflicts. Again, according to the culture map, there is this way of communicating, perhaps in open source, because you need to write everything down. You need to be way more direct, way more open, basically. And people need to understand that this is not an aggressive way of communicating. This is the only way you can communicate with people sometimes, at least through mailing lists, through Slack channels, Mattermost, IRC, whatever you are using. And that's something that you need to have in mind when you are, having this discussion. Sometimes there are flames in open source communities that you realize that shouldn't happen because it was just a misunderstanding about the words that you were using. So having a clear understanding that this may happen, it's really helpful.
Yeah, and this could be a more transparent way, but there's some different mind in China or Asian people. It's like we are not want to show our weakness in a public way. But I think if you want to get into the community, especially for the newcomers, please don't hesitate. Please don't be shy. If you don't know anything, you can just ask. Because with the internet, you can choose another name. It will help you, but normally people won't judge you. And if you ask the questions directly, you can get help from the community. Especially, I think there's a lot of mentors in the community willing to help you through the whole process.
So from an open source perspective, we think that probably both approaches are used. Sometimes you need to talk to someone in private just to show some things. Sometimes you need to talk to someone in public. And then ideally, you are moving people to simply discuss things in public. Then we have this idea of how to make decisions. Because in open source, we are thinking about, we are discussing about making decisions in a more community way. So then we are all equals. Well, there is this concept of meritocracy. So there are probably, around technical leaders. So we have Willem here that is at the board at ISF. But after all, it's all about having a discussion, you and basically all them community members.
I think in Asia, there's because we have a hierarchy system and we are stick to the family. As you can see, if you have a lot of sibling or a big family, you need to have some kind of hierarchy system to keep it running. And I think it's just a common cases we have. But in open source world, it's like a more individual participate and everyone is equal. So we probably need to stick to that part to help you to go to get familiar with the communities and know how to be involved as an individual.
And finally, we have this concept of social currency. That if you think about typically how Europe, US, Canada, and other countries in the Western they work, this is typically task-based. And in open source, it looks like this. So you do things, and then you are recognized, right? So then you are building your personal profile, you are building your public personal profile by doing things, by attending conferences, giving talks, helping people, growing others. So this is it.
Yeah, and in China we talk about 关系. I'm not sure if you know about that, but it's like we try to build some relationships. But these relationships could relate to certain kind of people, and the people will introduce to each others. And we also have one concept of the 自己人, one of us. How can you be a one of us? We will show it later. There's a ring-based theories about that. But it looks like there's still some metric system to run, and we think if we want to build the business beside the two part, we can go the same way.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So if you think about these observations or lessons learned from these books, what we can see is that there are a couple of them that are kind of balanced between both sides, and then there are a couple of them that are balanced into this place I am, right? So then the main issue probably is that we are kind of, or perhaps open source foundations and open source projects work in a certain Western way of thinking from that perspective.
Oh, okay. So this brings individualism and the collectivism together. And as you may know, for Chinese people, we have the stories. Always a group of people concrete certain kind of things. Is like we are emphasize more collective wisdom. But there's some interesting things about that. It's like there's just like organizational model of the associations in this book. Is talk about the Western country. It's like a bunch of people stick together by following certain kind of rule, just like the code of conduct of some things. But how the Chinese people collaborate with each other, it's like there's a different model. It's like a ring-based model, and in the center of the ring, it's like an individual, and there's a different relationship based on the ring. It's like a ripple you get when you throw a stone into the water. It's came out, and there's some collections together, and it's like we are building the relationships. And in the meantime, this relationship could relate it to your blood, your region, and it's hard to change. So it's not the task-based trust, but how can we do the business? It's like we need to someone in the middle to do the introductions, to help them to get to know each other, to build the trust. So that is what I always told with Daniel about that. Yeah. So it's different.
Yeah, my feeling here is that I know how to behave here. William not how to behave here, and here I don't know how to behave myself here. So then I was talking to William. William, I want to learn.
Okay.
What is what I need to do?
Yeah, that's is why we started these conversations and have this presentation.
Yeah, and open source communities, again, we were discussing this is more than just code. So we are thinking about community, we are thinking about meeting people, we are thinking about learning. This is a learning experience. We know each other, right? And the question here is, how can we each other a cultural bridge for others? How can we each other to be part of an open source community that is apparently, a bit harder to join for, difference on the language, on the cultural aspects, and other things. And the idea is think about not only coding together, but growing together.
Yeah. And I think if we want to know each other, we should mutual respect and help to each other and try to learn with each other. And yeah, that is what I learned from the community, and that is why we built the community, and that is what we want to share in this talk. And also, there's my story about the Opti local community. As you know, Opti Software Foundation has been established for 25 years so. And but in China, we just get in 50 years. And how can we grow the community inside? It's like we have the project that goes through the incubating process, and the people wants to share it, and we have a bunch of people who already work on these projects, and suddenly we get together and to see, we can start a local community and to hold the meetup together. Even we hold the OptiCon Asia for 3 years, and I'm very proud of that. And in this way, we get connections with the people, local people, and to share the experience with them. And finally, I think we practice some things from Sawyer. It's like we build the trust through the 关系 we already said in the incubating process. And I think this kind of social currency, and it can be passed, and it can bring us together. And I think this is a unique. It's not a unique in the Chinese, but I think it's a common practice in global. And I think Daniel can share his story.
Specifically at the Inner Source Commons, is a community of businesses, and then the main interest is purely business. We can say we are not producing code, which is quite interesting, but we are working in the open, so we are producing knowledge about how we can work. Inner source is about bringing the open source way within the walls of the organization, and how we can produce software in a more collaborative way, with the goal of basically break down silos. So then you are not producing in different geographical locations once and again similar pieces of code. So that's a lot of money. So from the inner source commons perspective, there are a couple of things that differ from the usual open source communities. One of them is, hey, we are running under Chatham House rule. So Chatham House rule is the only rule we have, and it says that you can use the information for your own purposes. You cannot affiliate that information to either a company or an individual. So basically, we are creating a safe environment to collaborative share basically our experiences, pain points, failures as well, or successes all across the industry. So then the knowledge we create is open, as in open source, is Creative Commons buy or share alike, depending on what we are producing. And now we have many local communities. So the community now is growing, and now we are starting to face the cultural differences sometimes.
Yeah, I think we will have just like in meetings in China.
Yeah, probably at the end of September approx. That's something the date is still to be said. Like it's gonna run around those dates.
I'd be happy to help with that.
Thank you.
To summarize, there are several open source principles, and I think it's also for the social currency.
So this is about, we have 5 minutes, we were said. So it's all about how can we encourage others to have kind of a radar for this kind of misunderstanding. So my suggestion would be, if you feel that there has been some misunderstanding, you are kind of starting to have that radar. So try to be patient, open mind, talk to others, share your fears, share your knowledge. Smile. It's all about talking about people.
Yeah. It's really a great practice we can use. Just keep communications and build the kind of sensitivities. And once you realize there's a difference and respect those difference, you will get it running.
Now we have this discussion about the leadership in open source. So you first.
There's some observations. It's like if there's a open source project that start from China and a lot of Chinese, they will feel comfortable to join us. So I'm still thinking if there's some language barriers or some things, but it's like there's still some culture related things in that part. It's like we have some connections already, so it's real easier for us to get touch with the people. But
yeah, in a more Western project, specifically at the Inner Source Commons, we had that issue of how can we keep them engaged? So what can I do as part of the community to help them to be engaged? Because they are interested in inner source, but then at the same time, from the community perspective, we are failing into building those bridges, right? So then, how can we proceed?
Yeah, and that is why I meet the Daniels, and he showed his warmness, and he helped us as holding a Zoom meet in Asia Pacific friend time, and then we have a lot of conversations, and now we are become friends.
We have this discussion as well about the personal career. How to move forward, team mentorship.
Yeah. And in China, it's like we are not quite introduced to the more individual things, and it's really hard for random people to get the trust. And just as we showed for the open source community, it's more like you do the task and show your work publicly, and then you can get trust from others. But in China, we almost wants to build some connection relationship map that that's different. And but sometimes we can combine them together, and it's like we can find multiple tools to use, and then with the help of the Daniel, if he wants to spread the business, team mate also wants to get close, get more connections with the people in China.
Mm-hmm. And then, so open source, I would say, is bringing a great mitigation strategy here, which is the participation in the open. So you are able, we have 2 minutes, we are able to, show value by contributing in the open. And then you can see that all of this is a public record. So we go back to this discussion of the public profile.
You want?
Oh, I go first? Okay, sure. No. Please go to the next one.
Okay.
So the discussion about here is quite interesting, because one of the problems that we were facing at the Inner Source Commons, not at the Inner Source Commons, me personally, is that I didn't know what is the right communication channel I should be using, specifically with Chinese. So last year I was invited by the Open Euler Fox to give a talk at the Open Euler Summit. And then I realized that basically everyone was using WeChat. So by having WeChat in my mobile phone, suddenly I had a full open door to everyone there and have kind of an instant communication. And that was great. My question is, why?
Yeah, that's certain areas has a certain kind of rules, and so you can understand it. And but we also can move forward, because we also try to encourage more newcomers, and try to influence the more projects to use the email or others to have the more public discussions. So, but there's a difference. It's better if we can understand each other and try to embrace. And in this way, we can work together and to build a more great future.
Yeah. So yeah, after all, this is all about embracing cultural differences, and we hope that this conversation between two men, coffee discussion, was useful for you, as it has been useful for us. So thank you all for your time.